Hey guys, welcome back to Lex Greer's podcast. I'm your host, Alexis, and today we are going to dive into Woman with a Powerful Voice and a Song with a Powerful Meaning. She is no other than the most influential jazz singer of all time, as well as she left an extraordinary legacy and made an indelible impression on the culture landscape. She is no other than Billie Holiday. Also, real name is Eleanor Fagan, born April 7, 1915, at Philadelphia, PA. Some sources say Baltimore, Maryland. Either or, she was in the eastern and north side. So, let's dive into Miss Holiday's past in regards of her childhood. So she was born by two teenager unmarried parents, Sarah Julie Sadie Fagan and Clarence Holiday, who she later adopted the last name Holiday. During her childhood, she dealt with her mom being a single parent and being taken care of by other friends or relations by her mom, while her dad chased his dream to be a jazz, banjo, and guitar player. Since her mom had to work, she had the help of her mother in law to care for her, having that disconnect from both parents caused some bandits as well as finding ways to survive. And both mother and daughter, it definitely was tough and to raise and be able to do what was right. Because mind you, that her mom had her at around 13 and 14, which in my opinion is not close to having the capability to raise a child, but she definitely did. And she know and hope for the best. But with Billy, she dealt with other things at a very young age, like sexual abuse, as well as being raped at the age of 10 or 11. And yeah, that person who did it did face some charges. And I think it was only about 3 years, which I feel like that's not enough time. And did time, just horrible things that she had to deal with at such an early age after she was part of the system, meaning she was foster. She was eventually released and she went to prostituting with her mom. So this is like after she dropped out of school and because she was skipping school during the time that she was being taken care of with her mother-in-law. So she essentially started to prostitute with her mom essentially, and they both end up going to jail, and this is their way of surviving, which caused her and her mom to get arrested, which they were doing what they had to do to survive. And for people that are out there that are doing things like that, there is an outlet that you can find to bring you back into the light. Because after her mom were arrested for doing what they were doing, young Billy finally escaped that life. And like I said, most people don't get out of that society because they don't see no good in them leaving, dealing with what they already went through. And they cope. But I believe having that right outlet to bring back the light, you can do it. And that's what Billy did. She began singing in Harlem nightclubs, and she ended up changing her name to the first name as Billy based on her favorite movie actress, Billy Dove, and adopting the surname of her absent musician father, Clarence Holiday. And that was the start of her new life and career. And I want to say that this young star became something more than just an artist, a jazz artist. So let's go into life of her stardom. Starting at the age of 18 in 1933, she caught the eye of record producer John Hammond, who heard her sing and arranged for her to making her own record recording in November of that year with the Benny Goldman brand. Her recordings, Riffing the Scotch, sold 5,000 copies by 1935. This will be huge because if you think about the limitation of artists being able to have that type of exposure, she was one of the artists that was able to have that much exposure, and she was later use that to her advantage to make history. And during that same year, she signed to Burnswick Records, where she teamed up with band leader Teddy Wilson and produced a number of jazz hits. She also reconnected with a jazz saxophonist, Lester Young, who she met in 1934, and Young gave her the nickname Lady Day, which a lot of people refer to her when she speaks on music. She also gave him a nickname, which was Prez, which I believe it was referred to being most talented. This are the greatest, I believe. This is where the tour began in for her in 1937, where she worked with Count Bass, and by 1938 with Artie Shaw, where she became the first black singer to tour with a mostly white band. And this right here is where 1939, April 20, will forever be a remembered day for Holiday. This is where she recorded her most controversial song, Strange Fruit. The song sang by her has a more stronger meaning to it, what it is being told about. It actually was created by a man known as Abel Mirabal, and guess it's not only one story, it's two stories. So here we go. Before I start, I want to say viewers discretion advised because there are some details that may be disturbing. So both stories start at DeWitt Clayton High School in the Bronx, where many others famous people and its alumni like James Baldwin, Richard Rogers, and many more at the year of 1920. Marable graduated and went on to teach English for 17 years at that same high school. He was also a poet and a social activist, says Gerard Pellison, who wrote a book about the school. In 1930, Gerard says Mirabeau was disturbed by the continuation of racism in American, and seeing a photograph of lynching sort of put him off edge. Mirabeau once said the photograph haunted him for days, so he wrote a poem about it, and which was then printed into Teachers Union publication and composure. Mirabeau also set his words to music. He played it for a New York club owner who ultimately gave it to Billie Holiday. And this is where Billie sang the song, which reached millions of people. While the song does not mention the word lynching, the metaphor is a painful, clear, and in 1999, the Time magazine named Strange Fruit the song of the century. It was put in the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress and was recorded a dozen of time, and also a instrumental version was created by Marcus Miller. And Miller was surprised that the song was written by a white Jewish man from the Bronx. And he said it took extraordinary courage for both Marable to write and Billy to sing. Like Billy, the New York lawmakers didn't like Strange Fruit. In 1940, Marable was called to testify before a community investigating commissioners in public schools. They wanted to know whether the American Communist Party had paid him to write this song, and they had not. But like many New York teachers in this day, Mirabeau was a communist. After all of this happening to him, he quit his job and left the Communist Party. But his actions did not stop there, because not only after he passed did his sons Robert and Michael both become college professors, they also both involved in social issues. And and for Billy, it was the beginning of the civil rights movement on the song where it was haunting protests against the inhumanity of racism, unabashed protest of Southern lynching. She performed it at the club in 1939. Fearing possible retaliation, she later said that the imagery of the song reminded her of her father's death, and that this played a role in her resistance to performing it. But when she did perform it, she set the scene. And when I say she set the scene, during the song Long Introduction, the lights dim as Holiday begins singing. Only a small spotlit illuminated her face. On the final note, all the lights went out, and when they came back, on Holiday was gone. The connection with her with the song was Holiday said her father, Clarence Holiday, was denied medical treatment for a fatal lung disorder because of racial prejudice, and that saying "strange fruit" reminded her of the incident. It reminded me of how Pop died, but I had to keep singing it. Not because people asked for it, but because 20 years after Pop died, the things that killed him are still happening in the South. And when Billy's producer at Columbia found that the subject matter too sensitive, Milt Gabler agreed to record it for his Commodore Records label on April 20, 1939. Strange Fruit remained in her repercussion for 20 years. This song became the second biggest selling record, but it also promoted visiting by the FBI. And while she had continuous success on various records like popular recording God Bless the Child came when Holiday's mother, who became a owner, refused to give Holiday money. She reported stormed out the restaurant saying, God bless the child that got his own. A band member heard this word, turning them into a song, and Holiday recorded in 1940. God Bless the Child became Holiday's only million seller record, and more records after that until legal troubles. Oh my, 16. On May 16, 1947, Holiday was arrested for possession of narcotics. In New York apartment on May 27th, she was in court. It was called The United States of America versus Billie Holiday. This movie shows the impact of what Billie stand for when it came to her rights as a black jazz musician, as well as artist, producer, and more. So I watched this movie twice, and when I say you feel the emotion of what this woman went through throughout her career, of her music career. And she stand 10 toes to the very end of her life. And I think you guys should check it out because it goes in depth because of what she had to go through with the FBI agents. And that we'll later discuss about in my viewpoints of how she was targeted based on her use of illegal substance. But she was sentenced to, while she was in court, she was sentenced to federal prison camp in West Virginia. The drug possession conviction caused her to lose New York City cabinet card, preventing her working anywhere that sold alcohol. Thereafter, she performed in concert venues, and thereafter, Holiday was released on good behavior. She did end up performing again, but she was hesitant because of her arrest and she didn't want to be judged based on that. But the law was in the only thing that Billy was struggling with. Most people now these days will call this addiction, substance abuse, or all sorts of things. But in Billie's eyes, it was a way to cope with the traumatic things that were happening in her life, and at that point, as well as the abusive relationships that she had with her former lovers, current, and as well having the FBI on her target. Because, like, when I say the impression of that series, of that movie, it made it seem like one person was after her and multiple people joined in. And target her on her drug charges to get her arrested, to put her down while she had a song that will later be part of a civil rights movement motion. And sudden to say that her life did cut short due to drugs and alcohol. She was later diagnosed with cirrhosis in 1959 of the heart and liver. Although she had intended to stop drinking on her doctor's orders, it was not long before she relapsed. By May 1959, she had lost 20 pounds, and her manager, Joe Glaser, jazz critic, Leonardo, Lor- I said Leonardo, I meant Leonard Feather, photojournalist Alan Morrison, and the singer own friends all tried to vain to persuade her to go to the hospital. On May 31, 1959, Holiday was finally taken to the hospital in New York for treatment of both her liver and heart disease. According to the writer and journalist Jordan Harry, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics under Harry J. Angstliger had been targeting Holiday since at least 1939 when she started performing Strange Fruit. However, according to author Lewis Potter, there was no federal campaign to stop Holiday from singing the song. Is where the allegation that Holiday was targeted for singing Strange Fruit originated, and that the claims did not appear anywhere else before that. Narcotics police went to her hospital room, claiming that they had found heroin in her bedroom. A grand jury was summoned to indict her, and she was arrested, handcuffed to her bed, and placed under police guard. I find this very traumatic for someone to have to deal not only with going through a disease that could potentially kill them, but also having the FBI still coming after you during your deathbed. Like, I just feel like that's just insensitive. And yes, I understand that it was back in the time where certain things weren't, like, there was not rights given to black people in that sense of way, but I just feel like that's just very unsensitive in regards of that. And according to Harriet, after 10 days, methadone was discontinued as part of Angslayer's policy. And I feel like me working in healthcare and knowing that you can potentially save lives. And yes, I know, like, if her heart was declining, her liver was declining, like, if she was going to pass, she was going to pass, but at least she would pass peacefully versus someone slightly, in my opinion, sabotaging her. And on July 15, she received last rites. Holiday died at age 44 at 3:10 a.m. on July 17, 1959, of pulmonary edema and heart failure caused by cirrhosis of the liver. So yes, she was already declining, but there was still some type of allegations of Angslayer of being responsible for her death. Well, the death was tragic and heartbreaking. Her legacy still moved on even after her hometown, as well as other artists still recreate the song with their own voice and letting her legacy live on. So I definitely was touched in regards of the life of Miss Holiday. And yes, it was a tragic knowing that she died so young. But if you guys definitely want to listen to the song that was more of a staple on her career, Strange Fruit, it is available on Apple Music and all sorts of things. But for now, I just wanted to close out this episode and I hope you guys enjoy. Bye.